When you think about marathons that can air on any TV network, you'd often associate it with multiple episodes of a specific show or a series of films airing one right after the other. It's less likely that anyone would consider professional wrestling to work in that type of format, especially when the weekly programs already go on for a few hours, and the major high-profile events can go even longer depending on the scale. But during the mid-90s, Turner Broadcasting and WCW would attempt to see if binge-watching wrestling matches in a similar way could work on the Superstation. Long before accessing services that had wrestling on demand, and during a time when WCW themselves had very limited home video releases for their older catalog of content, TBS would broadcast 2 6-hour specials that showcase some of the best matches who have ever aired on free TV, while also featuring some of the voices and personalities of wrestling that would often help bring insight, laughs, and legitimacy to not only the history of wrestling on TBS, but as well as matches that have ever taken place at the company's Clash of the Champions events. Today's video is going into detail as to what exactly happened during both of these wrestling marathons, but the matches themselves aren't necessarily going to be the focus. I instead wanted to highlight a lot of the banter and the skits that took place in between each featured match, and how it helped to make these very lengthy shows all the more enjoyable. So, let's not waste any more time. Let's take a look back at WCW's All Nighter wrestling specials. The first special aired on March 6, 1994 from 12:05 to 6:05 a.m. as a part of TBS's Nightflix programming block, with the focus being a showcase on the best matches to have taken place at the Clash of the Champions. It opens in the Schiavone Den, as Tony introduces what we'll be seeing for the next 6 hours while struggling to get a whole lot of snacks into the other room.
Time for the WCW All Nighter.
Hey, Tony, let's go. Come on.
Heenan, Bobby, could you come here and help me carry some stuff?
I can't find my leisure way I had sent ahead.
Would you please help me carry something? We'll go in and we'll start watching.
Well, look up there. Load up with all that stuff. Let me give you a hand here.
Thanks, Bob.
This leads into the first match of the night being shown, between Ric Flair and Sting from the inaugural Clash of the Champions. After Tony joins the rest of WCW's announce team, Bobby Heenan continues his search for his leisure wear, while Larry Zbyszko helps to introduce the Enforcers against Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat from Clash 17. Eric Bischoff joins the party and tries to goat Mean Gene about some Hulk Hogan related rumors.
I didn't say
Wait a minute.
Gino, what's this Hulk Hogan thing I heard about on WCW Saturday?
Ooh.
Come on,
Here he comes. I'll have to talk to you about it.
Come on.
No. Only on the hotline. Right.
Yeah, hotline.
Yeah.
Would you give the fans something for free for a change?
As Tony then segues into Flair vs. Lex Luger from Clash 12 in Asheville. A third of the way into the all-nighter, Mean Gene gives Chris Cruz a hard time for not getting into the party mood, as Eazy-E takes over after the commercial break to hype an appearance from the world champion Ric Flair for later on. We then go to the unified tag title match between the Hollywood Blondes against Steamboat and Shane Douglas from Clash 22. Gordon Sully then makes a fashionably late appearance and explains to the guys what happened on the way there.
I thought you told me to turn left off the interstate.
Right off in a Gordon. How many pizza, pal?
I'm sorry, I got so frustrated trying to get here that I forgot all about it.
What do you mean, you didn't bring the pizza with you?
No, I'm sorry, guys. Hey, what? Hey.
As he then introduces the 2 out of 3 falls match between Flair and Steamboat from Clash 6. Coming back from the break, Okerlund drags the Brain back into the other room to show off and praise his choice of night attire.
Here you go. Take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. You look resplendent in that night shirt. That's it, right?
Put them up.
Well, what do you mean, put them up?
Now, you know I have navy blue silk jammies here with my initial on the pocket.
Yeah, what happened to
They
that?
said Mr. Okerlund said they were stained, they'd have to be cleaned. You're to wear this.
Built on them, right?
I'm not wearing this. I can't be seen in stuff like this. Those cameras aren't rolling, are they?
What do you mean they're not rolling? We're on the air live. Come on.
Leading into the implosion of the Hollywood Blondes between Austin and Pillman at Clash 25. We then get a brief bumper showing the scenery of late night Atlanta as it transitions to the Falls Count Anywhere match between Cactus Jack and Van Hammer from Clash 18. As we get into the 4th hour, Tony is on the phone with the Nature Boy while Heenan finally brings in the pizza, but quickly forgetting about the rib that Mean Gene pulled on him.
Shut the door tight. I just beat the kid out of the beat from under here. Who is that?
Ric Flair again.
Let me talk to Ric Flair.
You don't want to talk to you.
I don't believe it. What's going to happen here?
Keep him, Bob.
You're not going to believe it. Let me talk to Flair. I'm going to ask him questions about something.
He don't want to talk to you.
How do you know he don't?
He's getting ready to put the robe on.
Oh, I know. Oh, I got to talk to him before he puts the robe on. Let me just talk to Flair. Wait a minute.
We then go to the first bonus match of the All-Nighter between the Road Warriors and the Samoan SWAT team from Clash 8 in Columbia, South Carolina. The WCW champion finally makes his arrival into the rec room of the Schiavone household, as Nate and the Weasel start going back and forth for a bit.
We got a party going on.
Stop. You don't understand what's going on here.
We're on the first floor.
We just got some nice real cold pizza, right? And some stale chips and some lousy drinks.
Your wife must vacuum the house every 16 months.
This fellow here, they've been throwing dirt on me. They don't know if he's dead or not. Claire, get me out of here. They're all nuts here. Get me out of here.
I think it's better that you portray the part you played in Albany at the party I had down there, my friend. It's a quality inn.
Let me go call AAA then. We're going to need some help.
Before we get our second and final bonus match of the night, the Thunderdome cage match between Flair and Sting against Terry Funk and the Grey Muta from the first ever Halloween Havoc pay-per-view.
Did you see the thing on TBS, National Geographic, the Chinese acrobats? Hey, welcome back to the All Nighter.
Did you see Bobby Heenan out here early?
I saw that. Can I say something?
Go stop, Bob.
Yeah. You know my wife, don't you?
I know your wife very well.
I am toast when she comes back home.
I don't blame you. I'll be out of here.
Deep, yeah, sure is.
Whatever.
Now getting into the home stretch, the main event from Clash 4 is up next, as Flair and Barry Windham take on the Midnight Express, before the rest of the crew join back for the final Clash match to be shown, which fittingly took place mere weeks after the Thunderdome match, with Flair and Funk and their I Quit encounter from Clash 9 New York Knockout. And after the final bell, Tony and the guys wrap up the first ever Wrestling All-Nighter, but Schiavone soon realizes the mess that he's going to have to clean up before the family return home.
Tony, thanks so much.
No problem.
Hey, can I say this? Most of the kids will be home about 1 o'clock today, so if you guys don't mind.
Sure, we don't mind leaving at all.
What do you think, Gordon? Take a hint, Tony.
Guys, thanks. Stuff to do.
Pick up a can here.
Go ahead, Victor. Have a bucket.
Pick up a can and put it in the trash can, would you please?
Hey, Tony. Got a buck? You can make a phone call. Hey, Larry, what?
So as skeptical as I was going into this, seeing how a wrestling marathon would be able to work in execution, I will say that the first All-Nighter special was actually quite enjoyable throughout. And I especially liked the more laid-back and somewhat comedic energy from Tony, Bobby, and all the announcers during the skits in between the matches. And as it would turn out, a lot of viewers who stayed up very late to watch this marathon on TBS would end up feeling the same way. In the Wrestling Observer a few weeks later, Dave Meltzer reviewed and praised the All-Nighter, saying, quote, "All the announcers were pretty funny, and the matches, most shown in their entirety, were mainly classics." Meltzer also mentioned that the Nielsen rating for the special came in at a 1.2. It was quite a number to have, especially given the very late time slot that the marathon was airing in. It also impressed Turner executives enough to consider having the Wrestling All-Nighter Marathon become an annual event on the Superstation, with the first follow-up to the All-Nighter set to take place in early 1995. The second All-Nighter special took place on January 21st, 1995 in the same time slot as before, though this special also served as a bit of a promotion for the 30th Clash event that was 4 days away. Compared to the first All-Nighter, this one had more of a proper format to it, with a top 10 countdown of the best matches in Clash history, along with some bonus matches sprinkled in between. Tony opens the special with the same motley crew from before, but now with the American Dream Dusty Rhodes joining in on the chaos that's sure to come. Schiavone then explains why they aren't in the rec room for this particular All-Nighter.
Let me say this, that we did not go to my rec room this time. If you'll recall, you guys left the place in shambles last time. That's right, and my wife would not let us go to my house.
Hey, all your wife has to do is plug that vacuum cleaner and start pushing it a little bit. Place to get clean.
Thank you, Bobby. Nevertheless, we had to check into the Omni Hotel here in Atlanta, but we'll be watching TV here in just a few moments. Gentlemen.
And as they prepare to show the first entry in the countdown, or count up as Tony keeps calling it, Bobby Heenan looks as stoked as you would imagine given what happened to him before to do this marathon all over again. Number 10 is the United States title match between Ricky Steamboat and Stunning Steve Austin from Clash 28 in Cedar Rapids. After the match, Tony mentions that the 8th entry was Big Van Vader vs Dustin Rhodes from Clash 29, but the match itself isn't shown. We instead get Dusty describing from his perspective how important that match was to his son, as well as talking about the potential that Dustin would have within WCW.
You know, Tony, it was a point of his life and his career where we both felt, me and him talking going into it, that he had to make a statement, whether win, lose, or draw, he had to make a statement. To put on some poundage, maybe 10, 15 pounds. We talked about that on the pro show with the legendary Larry Tabisco and the Dean Gunn, Solid and McAfee, Dusty Rhodes, Stardust Tower Power. Anyway, it was a tremendous match for him to be in that position. They both proved one thing, they're both in the top 5 contenders throughout the country. I look for Dustin to get a shot with Hulk Hogan or whoever the champion is in 1995. Lost the match, circumstances beyond his control, Harley Race. But Vader, I think, is the most powerful individual in the game. To stay toe-to-toe to him like he did was something like, I would say, the Washington Redskins staying close to the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, that is nice. That is really nice.
Dusty also jokes about his mom staying up late to watch the All-Nighter, as we then go to number 9 on the countdown, Vader vs the British Bulldog for the world title at Clash 29. Coming back from commercials, Gordon Sully tells the story of a tag team from years earlier known as the Mulkey Brothers. Bill and Randy were journeyman wrestlers who competed in several territories in the late 80s and ended up gaining a cult following while doing so. As we then get to see the Mulkeys in action against the Gladiators from an Atlanta studio taping in 1987. The match ends just as quickly as it begins, as Bill, or Randy, unintentionally trips one of the Gladiators and allows the other brother to score the upset victory. Back in the Omni hotel room, the Brain has an issue with the chips being served, as spot number 7 goes to the rematch between Flair and Hulk Hogan from Clash 28. But we instead get the second bonus match between the two, in a career versus career cage match at the previous year's Halloween Havoc pay-per-view. Later on, Heenan throws a suggestion to Tony after finding out what floor of the Omni Hotel they're on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you sure are.
What floor are we on?
We're on the 9th floor.
Can we get some balloons?
Why?
Don't you ever do that?
No, I don't do it.
You don't heave them out to people? You don't know how to live.
As number 6 in the countdown, or count up, goes back to the Austin and Pillman match from Clash 25. Sully and Zbyszko then discuss the next Clash match between the Enforcers against Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat, with the Living Legend explaining in his own words why he and Arn ended up losing the tag team titles that night.
Well, you know, it's amazing how the media loves to label you. You know, the Enforcer is a very appropriate nickname for Arn Anderson. You know, look at the guy, you realize, perfect example of endomorphic human being. But this match really threw a curve to the thinking of Arn Anderson when Ricky the Dragon came out incognito, which was basically unfair. I protested it, but basically Arn Anderson lost emotional control, got very upset, would not listen to me. If he would have listened, nobody in the world could have ever taken the tag team belts off of us.
This gets followed up with another bonus match on the All-Nighter, from the Atlanta studio back in early 1989, as Flair and Barry Windham take on Eddie Gilbert and his partner, Mr. X, who's later revealed to be Ricky Steamboat. Tony and then discuss the feud between the Dragon and the Nature Boy, as the fourth best Clash match goes to their 2 out of 3 falls encounter from Clash 6 in New Orleans. We then get to see another classic between the two on the Superstation, with a replay of their bout from Main Event the previous July. Schiavone then brings in a surprise, as his former broadcast partner David Crockett joins the crew to discuss the influence that the Four Horsemen left in JCP and later WCW, before going into a compilation of interviews from the group. Tony and Gordon then talk about Dusty's success in the days of Jim Crockett Promotions, before going to number 3, with Dusty and Sting challenging the future Brainbusters Arn and Tully for the tag team titles at the second Clash of the Champions. And just as Ron from Papa John's brings in all the pizza and hangs out with the guys for a little bit, Bobby Heenan starts to get just a little bit drowsy.
If you're snoozing, you're losing brain.
Bobby,
Hey! Up, up, up.
did you enjoy that last match?
Yeah.
As we then get the Steiner brothers against the Road Warriors from Starrcade 1989. Okerlund then notices that Heenan is completely dozing off in his chair by this point, and as you would imagine, he decides to poke some fun at his expense.
Hey, wait a minute. I got an idea. Tony.
Speaking of idiots, right?
This is what's so great about All Night. I like this.
As the second to last Clash match on the top 10 is revealed to be the Flair vs. Funk I Quit match from Clash 9. Coming back from the break, Dusty then tells the story of how they got a gorilla into the Atlanta tapings back in 1985, as we go to a compilation showing some of Dusty's interviews with the gorilla in question. Okerlund then decides to go all the way and give his longtime broadcast partner a new look in his sleep.
And as long as he's here, you know I have to work with this clown on the main event and on Saturday night.
Yeah.
We both do.
Yeah, what a clown.
I've got an idea. You know what we gotta do with him?
What?
I'm gonna paint him up to look like a pussycat. Like a weasel.
Like a weasel.
Got some. When he wakes up.
As Heenan now truly becomes a weasel of sorts, we go to our final bonus match between Steen and Lex Luger for the world title in the main event of Super Brawl 2. Tony and David then reminisce on their early days working for Crockett, touching on the rivalry of different lifestyles between Flair and Magnum TA, as was shown a portion of this feud from the June 1st, 1985 episode of WCW. Flair offers Magnum a tailor-made suit that he paid out of pocket for, and as Flair wrestles the immediate match following, Magnum decides to get a closer look at the outfit in question. However, after the bell rings, Magnum then decides to tear it up while knocking down Ric Flair and sending a message to the NWA World Champion that he'll be coming for his title. As Mean Gene then finishes his masterpiece and the rest of the crew join back, Dusty and Tony talk about how significant Flair vs. Sting for the inaugural Clash of the Champions was, both in changing the Stinger's career and WCW entirely. As we then get to see the number 1 match from the top 10 Clash matches of all time shown in its entirety. And as Tony starts to wrap everything up, the rest of the guys get a good laugh at Bobby's expense as the Brain is completely unaware of what happened to him the previous hour.
Show's over, Bob.
Bobby, before these guys get ready 3 hours from now to go on the air with WCW Pro, I want to apologize publicly to you on this television station for ever using the term weasel.
Oh, no.
You certainly
Me too.
aren't a weasel. You don't look like a weasel.
What's so funny?
We're just so glad you're awake.
Yeah, I can't wait to go to work in 3 hours. I can't wait.
You missed really quite a night. Tony,
Is it fun? Tell me.
well, I'm sorry I ever thought you were a weasel.
Yeah.
Ever called you a weasel. You're the Brain.
You are Brain. You're the
And you're the Brain.
You're our co-host.
I've told you that for years, but you're up to something.
Yeah.
No.
What'd you do?
Nothing.
What'd you do? You hit my luggage or something.
Not a thing.
Food on my chin or something?
No.
What do you think I look stupid or something?
No, you look great.
Okay,
You
listen.
look great, Bob.
All right.
And with that, the second WCW All Nighter on TBS comes to an end. I'd say between the two all-nighter specials, the second one was my personal favorite. They were able to work out some of the kinks from the previous special, while improving on certain aspects such as allowing Bobby Heenan to be more of the butt of the joke with his interactions between Tony and Mean Gene. I also liked some of the brief moments in between the matches where they took time to acknowledge and show some of the earlier history of WCW being on the Superstation, whether it be through some of the more well-known rivalries or some of the more obscure footnotes. That being said, I do have one major gripe with the second all-nighter. Despite the format for this one being a countdown, or count up, for the 10 best Clash of the Champions matches, only 3 of those on the list were only mentioned briefly before it cut to completely different or somewhat related matches involving said wrestlers. And while I understand the need to throw in a bonus match or two to help break up the repetition, I personally would have swapped out a few of the bonus matches in favor of just showing those that got glossed over throughout the all-nighter. Unfortunately, the numbers for the second special aren't publicly available, but seeing as how WCW and TBS wouldn't produce any more all-nighter specials in the future, it's likely that either the rating didn't meet expectations or both sides decided to change course with their programming. And as you'd probably expect with this type of content from WCW, neither special got a home video release of any kind. It would take at least another 15 years for one to be made officially available, while the other one took a little bit longer to resurface. In June of 2010, the 95 All-Nighter would be added to WWE's Classics On Demand service under the TV Classics section, and would later be added onto the WWE Network's Hidden Gems section in September of 2019. The 94 All-Nighter would first be uploaded onto the Bilibili website on April 24, 2019, but it was missing the opening segment and would instead cut straight to the Flair and Sting match. However, on March 14, 2023, the full show in its entirety would be uploaded onto the Internet Archive thanks to user AGRDN3, now meaning that both of WCW's all-nighter specials were considered found media. As much as we like to point out some of the more bizarre and dumbfounding decisions from this particular era of World Championship Wrestling, both of the all-nighter specials that the company produced are an example of them attempting some new concepts. In this instance, putting a pro wrestling spin on a lengthy TV marathon that not only had some potential, but also helped to show the strong relationship between TBS and Ted Turner's wrestling company during this time. And although these specials don't serve as much of a purpose nowadays since nearly all of WCW's shows are readily available, the Wrestling All-Nighters are still worth checking out if you haven't gotten the chance to already. But if I may offer some advice, make sure you stay wide awake for these marathons as long as possible.